What is going on, guys? It is Jason Carr, and it has been a long time since I made a video for you guys. It's probably been 5 years. I don't know what it is, but we got better people to do those videos these days, thanks to ETA Prime and Farron. So I'm happy to be behind the scenes, but I'm glad to do this one video for you here, guys. Just completed the arcade cabinet build that I built from scratch, and so I'm thinking that you might want to see it. I also did a build process on the forums, so you've got all the details there on the forums as well. But I figured I would also take this opportunity to give you a tour of Unbroken Software headquarters. So this is going to be a combination tour and game room and arcade cabinet and the whole bit. Tour thing. So you know that we all work from home. Everybody that works for us, or at least most of you guys know that. And we're all in different locations around the country. We're all in the US. Actually, no, we're not all in the US. Brian is in Canada, which is basically the US. So not really a whole lot of difference there. We're all in North America. Anyways, so we all work from home, and so this is really just my office slash game room slash family area, etc. But I'm gonna call this the headquarters of Unbroken Software because it's the best we got. So this room is basically a conversion of a garage, ultimately, and thankfully I didn't have to do that, although I did have to do some work when we moved into this place because there was water leaks and all kinds of stuff in here. But it is a perfect room for me right now for the office and for testing and development and also just simply playing games. But let's get started here first with the arcade cabinet. First thing I want to focus on, I think, is the artwork. And I know it's a little dark in here. I could use some better lighting in here. I tend to like things dark, but I mean, it feels a little more like an arcade. But anyways, I really love this artwork, and you can probably guess who did this artwork just by looking at it, to be honest with you. You've probably seen this stuff before, and it's done by Rashid Lot. I will put a link to his website in the description. He's been so generous to us. We have, I think, I'm not sure if it's the only theme. I'm willing to bet his work is in more than one theme that's used for Big Box. But his work is fairly prominent in the banner box theme that Farron created, and it is just absolutely stellar. And the cool thing about Rashid, I mean, we reached out to him because we really wanted to use it, and we know we didn't really deserve to use it, but we really wanted to. And there was just one question, and he was so gracious and just approved it right away. So that was so much appreciated. So I was really, really glad to be able to hire him to create the graphics for this cabinet. So that is the first aspect of the cabinet that I wanted to share with y'all. Let me give you a quick look at the control panel here because he designed that as well. So that might be my absolute favorite thing about this cabinet is this amazing artwork. And he customized this artwork for me. So for example, we come over to this side. My favorite arcade games are Flicky and Tapper and Galaga right there. We have The Simpsons up top. We've got Elevator Action, which is another one of my favorites. Burger Time. There's a lot of good arcade favorites over here. And of course, he did an excellent job putting all my favorites on the cabinet. So he can certainly do something like that for anyone. And it really wasn't that much money. It wasn't that significant, so I don't even remember what I ended up paying him, but it was definitely well worth it. So anyways, that is the artwork. I guess we'll take a look at the monitors now. If we take a look at the top here, this marquee screen, of course, as we change, this will update. I'm still working on getting the artwork for the marquees up there, but these marquee screens are just incredible to have. And of course, Big Box has the support just built in for these, which is really, really nice. But this is a Pixelcade marquee screen. This whole cabinet is a 32-inch cabinet, so it's got a 32-inch TV in there. But the Pixelcade marquee screens are for the perfect size for the 32-inch cabinet. I actually ordered the screen with the mount that was for the Rec Room Masters machines because I knew it would be the right size. And I also had a Rec Room Masters machine before this one. It's in a video from a long time ago, at least one. And that was a nice machine, but when I compare that one to this one, this is just so big and so prominent. It's the right height for me, and I'm tall, and everything is so much better, to be honest. But it was also a lot more expensive between the parts and the materials and the time required. I mean, I put about 6 weeks of nights and weekends into this cabinet. So it was a lot. It was a lot to learn as well. But anyways, that whole process as far as the build, like I said earlier, is on the forums. So you can go and follow that entire process. And if you want to build something like this yourself, this will get you pretty far along the way as well. With where I got the plans and all the details there, and the issues that I ran into, they're all detailed there. So it's definitely worth looking at that, and that'll be in the description. So those are the screens. This is just a 32-inch Samsung 4K TV. One of the things I wanted to do per the screens with this cabinet is I wanted to deal with a 4K TV, which requires a DPI that's not 100%. So it's 150% DPI, and we have a 100% DPI marquee screen up top. Now there are quirks in Windows in dealing with two different DPIs between two different screens. And I know a lot of you guys that have cabinets have dealt with that, especially folks that have cabinets with 4K screens. What I've found, which is really kind of weird, but what I've found is if you put the marquee screen, it all comes down to where you position the screens in the Windows settings. So you get into your Windows display settings, you make sure your marquee screen is dragged to the top left, and then you put your main screen on the top right, and they both line up at the top. And what that will do is make it so that Windows doesn't get confused as far as the DPIs and where to put the stuff, and Big Box works great with it. So there's really no issues there. As long as you purpose or put everything in the right positions, it works out fine. The last thing I want to talk about with the screens, this is actually, I put glass here in front of the monitor, this Samsung TV, and I didn't know what would look best, but I'm telling you, you can't tell in the video, but putting glass directly in front of the screen with nothing in between, and then putting this border around it, I don't know what you call that, but the border is just some wood around it. I'm telling you, it looks incredible in person. It's like the best picture I've ever seen in an arcade cabinet. So that's highly recommended if you end up building your own, and that's part of the process in the build process, or part in the forum post as well. So there's that, and then per this control panel, I'll tell you what, building this control panel was a royal pain in the butt because I got everything from Ultimark, and Ultimark is not the best company in the world as far as usability and installation instructions and all that kind of stuff. Everything works pretty well, but man, that was kind of a pain. And there's some more of those details in the thread, but ultimately we have two buttons over here that are specific to when you use the spinner. So you're gonna use the spinner with your right hand and your left hand with the buttons there. We have these joysticks, which are MagStick Pluses, which will switch between 4-way and 8-way. And the MagStick Pluses have just been okay. I'm not sure, I'm still not sold on them. So be aware of that if you end up looking for a 4 or 2 8-way switching joystick. I am not 100% on them. You can look at the details in the forum post. Then we got 8 buttons per side. We got another MagStick here. We got our trackball, and it's LED RGB, just like all the other buttons on here. And we've got all these buttons up here. Now, a lot of people would prefer to have fewer buttons, but I love having everything laid out like this. It's just amazing. You do have the option when you build these things. There goes a track mode, by the way. You do have the option when you build these things. I'm gonna go ahead and stop that just so that it's not distracting while I'm looking at the control panel. But like I said, like I was saying, you do have the option when you build these things to use a button that is a shift button, so that your things like play and coin and all that stuff will be, or exit, or when you hold down the shift button, that's when those activate. But I really like having these dedicated buttons here. So I've got player 1 start, player 1 coin, player 2 coin, player 2 start. We have volume up and down buttons here. These are actually mouse button left and right. They go along with the trackball, right? Then I have, this is basically select. It's the enter key, ultimately, which is useful for a lot of things. You can use that for play, and when you're in MAME and you're changing settings, that's very useful as well. Your pause button brings up the big box pause screen. The stop button exits the game. And then I have this as a menu button, and that's basically for MAME and RetroArch, so that you can pull up the configuration menus for MAME or RetroArch when you press that button. So that's the control panel. I'm super happy with this layout. The layout is actually available in the design for it is actually available on the forums. There's one more thing actually on this control panel. So this button here is hooked up to the motherboard inside the cabinet and will turn the computer on and off. So the way that works is you can, I've disabled it so it won't shut the computer down. You have to do that via the interface. But when you press that button, it turns the whole thing on. And the other cool thing about it is you can get a power strip that is a master and slave power strip. So that the way that works is when the computer turns on, it will automatically turn on the monitors and the speakers and all that kind of stuff. So that works really, really well. I actually don't have that power strip yet, but I'm looking forward to getting it to get that all in place. You can get them off Amazon for 10 bucks. They're like nothing. I'm just waiting for it to ship from Amazon. So ultimately that one button will power on the entire cabinet, and you're good to go. And then when you go ahead and you shut down the computer through Big Box's shutdown option, everything will turn off, including the monitors, the lights down here, everything. Speaking of that, here is the coin door. And this is from X Arcade, I believe. It's their two-player coin door there. So anyways, that is the gist of the cabinet for the most part. One more thing is we'll take a look at the back so you can see what's going on in the back. So I'm just gonna come around the back here and hopefully you can see what's going on for the most part. We got our marquee monitor up there. We have 2 speakers on the left and the right. They're held in place. I have my monitor mount for the TV that I built. And then we come down here and this is what we've got going in the guts. So I just have a motherboard here that's mounted with standoffs directly into the plywood. Got my video card and a separate mount there to keep the video card steady. Power supplies in the back. You see that coin door. That's the subwoofer for the speakers. And that's about it. So there's not a whole lot more to this. I could have put a tower PC in here. That would have worked just fine. But I just wanted to do the more accurate arcade thing and build it myself into the cabinet. So that is the cabinet for the most part. We will continue here with the rest of the room. All right, so here is a wide angle of this room, and it is a very big room, and it's a wonderful room because I got pretty much everything in here that I want and need. We've got, well, first of all, we got game shelves everywhere, which is really, really nice. And I'll go through those game shelves here more in a bit. But I have a home theater section over here that's great for development and testing in a home theater environment. And also, this is where I play the majority of my games, honestly, just because it's such a nice environment and it's nice to be able to sit down on a couch at the end of the day to do most of my gaming. We have a few older machines over here. Actually, I think there's 5 machines in those 2 stations. And I'll go through that in more details in a bit. But that is used for testing in a lot of different ways, as well as LAN party gaming and stuff like that. Come over here, we got some shelves. There's the cabinet. Now that cabinet obviously is gonna go back against the wall when after I'm done with this video. I just wanted to record the video so we could see behind the cabinet before I moved it. And then over here, we've got 3 more stations, 3 more machines. And these are my kids' gaming stations, basically, which is really nice because we can have family gaming sessions in here. We kind of have like a built-in LAN party in this room, which is just a huge, huge blessing. And we use that all the time. But ultimately, these machines are used for development and testing as well. You know, before we put out a release, I tend to have every single machine in here running for a good week before we put out any releases, so that we can test performance, we can test stability, we can test for memory leaks, all those kinds of things, and try and give you guys the best, most stable product we possibly can. Okay, next we have the big wall of games, and then we also have, this is the newest addition other than the cabinet, which I just built, but I have a sim racing setup, which has also been very, 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 very fun. I've had a sim racing setup for a while, but this one is upgraded just in the last year. And man, I love doing it. Actually, lately I've been spending more time playing arcade games on it, if I'm honest. But I love sim racing as well. And this has been good, even just for development and testing, because there's a lot of quirky things about a sim racing setup. And you probably noticed in the last few versions, we did add some changes to Big Box to increase the compatibility here with the sim racing setup. Okay, and then we've got my wall of games, including my Big Box games, which are my favorite from my youth. And then over here, I have my development desk. So I think we'll go ahead and start diving into things in more detail here now that we've gone through the whole room. So I used to have 2 monitors, but I really prefer at this point having just one monitor that is an ultra wide like that. And so that's what I do all my development on these days. We also have, I also have my, I think this is a Samsung Galaxy S8 Plus. That I use for my Android development. I actually develop on the computer, but I go over here for my testing and my debugging and all that kind of stuff. So that's basically my development setup. This machine is a pretty beefy machine, and I did finally get it updated in the last year. It had been a good 3-4 years, and I definitely couldn't update during the pandemic because holy cow, it just everything was so expensive. But it was good to finally get that updated again this year. So, I mean, it's a powerful machine. It's got a 3090 in it. Actually, I think this one has a 3080 Ti. Yeah, it's a 3080 Ti, and it's got a 12900K. So it's a really nice system. I tell you what, it makes a difference for me, a significant difference, because believe it or not, those newer CPUs actually significantly reduce my compile time, believe it or not. So actually, I'm a lot more productive with a faster machine, which for a long time I thought it wasn't worth upgrading, and then I learned my lesson when I upgraded the last time I upgraded a few years ago, because it cut my compile time in half, which is a big deal when you're waiting 2 minutes every single time you compile the app. It really doesn't take 2 minutes, but it's close to that sometimes, especially for Android. Anyways, so that is the development desk there. You'll notice I have some musical instruments around here. I am a musician. I enjoy that, and so it's nice to be able to play music with the family, but that's obviously not work stuff. So that's just here for fun. Anyways, I guess we will start going around the room in more detail here. This is the first of the game shelves, and I have a lot of old PC CD-ROM games up top. Some of them are from my youth. Others I found for $1 or $2 at a thrift store back when you could do that. And so there's a lot of junk in there, but it's also a lot of good games in there. Then we have some NES games that I've collected over the years, some Super Nintendo games, some Nintendo 64 games, and some Sega Genesis carts down there. So that's the first of the game shelves. We got another game shelf right here. This is more of the PC CD-ROM games on top. We got Atari 2600. We've got Sega Genesis boxed games that aren't loose carts, and we have NES boxed games there as well. Then on the bottom, we have our Atari 2600 collection. And it's just loose carts. But Atari 2600 was actually a little before my time, but it was also what I played on growing up because it was all I had. So I do have a significant amount of nostalgia for 2600. Okay, let me come over here to the left, and this is the home theater environment, the home theater setup in this room. Got a nice big TV, which is the perfect distance, the perfect size for this distance. I can see the details in every game I play. I love it. I have an 8-port HDMI switch here, which is really, really convenient to be able to switch between various consoles and devices. Obviously, my favorite thing up here is the PC, and this is a very nice PC. Well worth it for gaming away from my desk. As much as, I am spoiled, I will fully admit that, but being able to not game in the same place that I work has been a marvelous, marvelous improvement for me. So FYI on that. Anyways, we'll keep going here. We actually have, I should go through all the consoles that I have in here, I suppose. This is basically only my modern or semi-modern and semi-modern consoles. But I have a Switch in here. I have an original Xbox. I have an Xbox 360. I have a PS5. I have a PS4. I've got a Wii U. I think I've got a Wii in there somewhere as well. And I think that's it. I don't need the Xbox One anymore because it's been replaced with the Series X. So we do have a Series X in there as well. So that is my semi-modern and modern consoles. I actually have a different spot in the house where I have all my really old retro consoles. But I do use those on a CRT TV, and I don't have room for that whole setup in this room. So that is the home theater setup. Now these PCs over here, obviously I got these glorious 19-inch CRTs. Actually, they might be 21. I can never remember, but they're nice and big. And it was really, really a pain in the butt to get these. I'll tell you that. I tried, I had to get them off eBay, and this was years ago. This was like 5-6 years ago. But I had to get them off eBay because they were just starting to get less common. And man, getting this size of CRT monitor shipped safely is a nightmare. So I felt really bad for a lot of sellers, but I had to basically get my money back like 3 or 4 times because I kept getting shipped CRTs that were broken because the sellers didn't know how to ship them. So that was a thing. You'll notice we also have, these are like holy grails of DOS gaming. This is a Roland sound canvas, and I love this thing because it makes all the old DOS games work or just sound amazing. And so I'm a big fan of external MIDI for DOS games. I also have a Roland MT32, and this was actually a gift from Serco way back in the day. We've been friends for quite a while, Serco from Emu Movies. So that was a pretty awesome gift to receive. And that's hooked up to an old Unisys 480. This is actually a Pentium 90, I think, this Unisys, which is a really neat little machine. One of my hobbies is definitely old PCs, and so I have a lot of old PCs. A lot of them are on display here. They're in different areas, but it's ridiculous how many old PCs I have in this house. It's just absolutely absurd. It's definitely a hobby and an obsession of mine. You probably noticed that I came out with a version of Launchbox for DOS, Launchbox for MS-DOS Special Edition, and that's why, because I run that natively on these old DOS machines. And these other machines, this is another old DOS machine, the white one there. It's actually a Pentium 2, so it's more like a Windows 98 machine that also runs DOS. I love running those old Windows 98 and DOS games, and so they're networked together, believe it or not, and we can do some pretty cool LAN party type stuff, even with the old DOS and Windows, really old ancient Windows machines. So the other machines are all used for testing and for LAN parties. This machine on the end is actually running Windows XP, although it's definitely a newer machine than what would typically be running Windows XP. But I did want a machine running that era of Windows for some different style games. So, and obviously these are on KVM switches because there's only 2 stations. So you can just switch between the different machines with the keyboard when you want to switch between machines. So we got these 2 stations for LAN parties. I got this rack over here, which is just basically a bunch of stuff, just random stuff. We got some, mini arcades up there, some controllers, some of the boxes for the classic editions, minis, whatever they're called, and some controllers in the box because, eventually someday they either I'll open them up when I need them and they're super expensive to buy someday, or I will keep them and I won't need them, and someday they'll be worth a lot of money for my kids. So that's kind of how that works. And then I got this shelf over here. Actually have some audio CDs up top. A little Fallout minifigure there. Some more controllers, some more carts, the Game Chasers videos, more box controllers, a couple Dreamcast VMUs. And there's my PS4 and my PS5 and my PS3 collection. I'm not a big Sony guy. I'm not a big PlayStation guy. So you'll find that my Xbox collections are a lot bigger than my PlayStation collections. I'm just not a fan of Sony as a company. Although they make great products, I don't like their business practices. So I try and support Microsoft more, although I know Microsoft's business practices are terrible as well. I kind of owe my career to Microsoft. Because they've just given me an amazing platform. And I also want to move on to Linux, don't get me wrong. I would love to not be stuck on Windows, but that's a whole different story. We've been doing a lot of research on that lately to try and figure that out. So I did want to mention that. But that is that game shelf. And then we get over here, here's the cabinet again, going through attract mode. Then I have my kids' 3 machines. Basically what these machines are, they've changed cases over the years. You can see that pink case that my daughter is using. But ultimately, these are just hand-me-downs. So the last time I upgraded, my youngest daughter got that machine. So they are very, 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 very blessed because they get good machines that are like 3-4 years old. My son's is probably 8 years old at this point, though. But anyways, these are the machines that we use, like I said, for testing. They're my kids' machines when they want to play games. And when we play the games together, they're for LAN parties. I do routinely have LAN parties over here with just my buddies, which is an awesome, awesome time. Brings me back to my past. So, got another game shelf here. We're getting there, nearing the end. Got another game shelf here. I've got my PlayStation. I've got the end of my PC games. CDs. We got a few Nintendo DS and some Spectrum tapes over there. By the way, some of these I've collected over the years just through game boxes and stuff, and I don't really have I don't have any expertise with. The Spectrum games are one of those for me. And there's the Switch collection and just some of my books. So there's that. And of course down here is the racing setup. Now this is all Fanatec stuff. Fanatec makes me mad, to be honest. I don't know, these days I feel like there's a lot of companies, especially in the arcade realm, that make me mad because the designs of things sometimes are just atrocious. But I do think Fanatec makes a good product. It's just the assembly stuff with Fanatec that can be just a nightmare. I used to have a Fanatec cockpit, and the cockpit is basically the frame that you sit in and stuff. And man, that cockpit was the worst designed piece of crap I've ever seen in my life. But and so it made me need to pick up a new cockpit because it would just give me so many issues. This is a Next Level Racing cockpit, and I'm really enjoying it. It's a great setup. Just a wonderful, wonderful thing here. Although it is very expensive, and I am very blessed to be able to have this whole setup. But we even have this set up for LAN parties. So I can have a buddy over here, and we can have 8 stations going on in one of our favorite games right now is the old Flat Out 2. And we can have somebody sitting in the racing cabinet playing Flat Out 2, and we've got 8 other machines going playing Flat Out 2, and it's such a good time, such a blessing. So there's that. And there's the PC that runs it. It's actually fairly similar to my other PCs. And it's fairly beefy because it kind of needs to be, but that's been a great blessing as well. All right, so I've got my game shelves here, and that is about it. That'll wrap up the room. I have my GameCube collection there. I've got a bunch of extra junk that needs sorted through, that's missing manuals and stuff like that. I've got my original Xbox collection, which I love. I'm a big fan of original Xbox. I got some Xbox One games there. I think there's some Series X games in there as well. There's the rest of my Xbox One collection, my Xbox 360 collection. I'm also a huge Xbox 360 fan. And down here we've got PS2 and we've got Wii. And then the rest of this is all PC games. And I grew up on big box PC games more than anything else, simply because that was all I had. Like I said, I had an Atari 2600 early on growing up, but my parents were keen to buy PCs because they were useful for more than gaming, although my dad did do some gaming. I didn't really have the opportunity to buy consoles very often, which is probably one of the reasons why I'm kind of driven to do this whole gaming scene thing, because I missed out on a lot as a kid. That said, PC games, old DOS and early Windows PC games are definitely my thing. They're my favorites. So that is it, guys. I think that pretty much wraps everything up. That is the room. I do want to say, guys, that I am so blessed, and I really appreciate everyone who supports this company, because it allows me to take my passion, which is old school games and modern games, but it allows me to take my passion and organization and development, because I've been developing apps and programs since I was 12, like literally. So the opportunity to do this for a living and combine all my interests together and build something just incredible is such a huge blessing. And now the team is 4.5 strong. It's just incredible. So I appreciate your support. I appreciate your time watching this video, and we're gonna keep doing this, man. We're going strong, and the apps just keep getting better and better, and I love it. And I love you guys for enabling us to do this. So thank you all very much. I hope you enjoyed the tour, and I'll talk to you soon.